Hey guys, it's Alan Tang, and you're listening to the Law of Ball podcast. Wow, it's been almost 6 years since our last episode, and we have a lot to cover. From the Rockets throwing to what did the Nuggets do next, to the historical, continuous, generational, consistent playoff choking from James Harden. But we'll get through all of that in later episodes. For now, I just want to focus on and pay respect to the great playoff series we just witnessed. When's the last time we had such a fun and competitive Western Conference Finals? It feels like since 2018, almost every series ended in five. Like a sweep here and there, one six-game series in 2021, but other than that, just not that competitive and fun that late into the season. And even though the individual games of this series weren't super close, Game 1 and Game 7 were historical. And they will go down as classics, especially in Wemby edits. The San Antonio Spurs are such an interesting team. They have such a likable and easy root for cast of characters from Wemby, Vassell, Castle to Harper, Champagnie, Carter Bryant, and Keldon Johnson. And I guess I don't know what to call him, the Nun Whisperer, the GOAT, Luke Cornett. I've been watching the Spurs this entire run, all 18 games, and I still don't know who my favorite Spur is. And I'm not really a believer in teams winning a ring in their first ever playoff run. And of course, they aren't guaranteed to yet. But they are a favorite to win it all right now. And that's wild. This core has never played this deep into the season with this level of competition, with this intensity. And they're just learning on the fly. And they deserve a lot. I mean, a lot of respect for that. We may be witnessing history right now. The OKC crowd is a loud, loud crowd. I still remember as a Warriors fan in 2016 thinking Game 3, 4, and 6 were one of the scariest environments to watch the Warriors play in. And the young guys, they got it done. Half those dudes are my age or younger, and they're going out and getting it done in a crowd that I get chills about just thinking about at home. So I just want to go through and talk about and highlight some of the Spurs first, as they deserve to as winners of the series. First we can go with Champagnie, Julian Champagnie. I don't know if you guys know his story, but he was originally on the Sixers and he got waived his rookie season for Matt McClung. He got waived for a dunk contest mascot. Like, what did Matt McClung do after that? Play 2 games? That's what Julian Champagnie's value was at the time. That must have been a scary, scary time for him because there's only room for 450 players in the NBA. The average career lasts 5 seasons? And you lost your spot in your rookie season to a PR stunt? That guy had no value to any team outside of All-Star Weekend. And not many guys get multiple chances at the NBA. And so that had to have been a hard time for him, facing the unknown potential end of his career. And you have to reflect and learn a lot about yourself at that time. And when he got an offer from the Spurs, he had to tell himself that no matter what they needed from him, he would do it. He had to work hard enough to at least provide the bare minimum of whatever they needed from him. And not only did he do that, he exceeded that and went above and beyond. Julian Champagnie hit 6 3-pointers in the biggest game of his career. The only other 2 players to hit 6 threes in the Game 7 of the conference finals are Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, the Splash Brothers, the 2 greatest shooters of all time, the mascots of the 2010s NBA dynasty. 4 rings each. He went from waived by the Sixers to in the history books with those 2. And this series wasn't easy for him either. He shot 6 of 31 from 3 in the first 4 games of the series, but you can tell he's mentally tough. He had to be to deal with the Sixers situation. He had to be to perform the way he did at the end of the series. To go from 6 of 31 from 3 in the first 4 games to 20 points in 2 of the last 3 games of the series, all respect to Champagnie. And as a shooter, I've been telling everyone at the Rec Center recently to call me Champagnie, and I hope he continues to ball out in the finals. But speaking of Sixers fumbles, what are the Sixers doing, man? They seriously just let this guy go? He's not the only one in the series who used to be on the Sixers. We got Jared Sold High McCain on the team as well, or on the other team as well. The dude who hit 3 after 3 after 3 on the Lakers. The dude who started multiple games in the conference finals. The dude who wasn't afraid to shoot no matter the moment or what his percentage was. This is just the second year of his career, and he's already not afraid of the moment. And they just let him go. You know what's even crazier? He's still not the only person in the series that used to be a Sixer. Isaiah Joe used to be on the Sixers too. He averaged double figures in the last 2 seasons for the Thunder. And even though he's not a standout player, he's been a key member of this team and played 6 of the games of the series. That's 3 key players in the conference finals that the Sixers just let go for essentially nothing. When's the last time the Sixers made the conference finals? In the weak East too. They haven't in the Joel Embiid era. And look at their bench right now. They have what? Their entire rotation is the 5 starters plus Quentin Grimes and Andre Drummond. What are we doing, man? They seriously could use some perimeter players, and they just let go of 3 for nothing. We just came off an intense, hard-fought 7-game series, and the biggest loser out of all of this might be the Philadelphia 76ers. Hey, shout out Philly though. But anyways, we were supposed to be honoring and celebrating the players on the Spurs. Let's get back to that. I want to talk about Devin Vassell next. The second best player on the Spurs, in my opinion. The guy was a knockdown shooter, especially in the beginning of the series. He was shooting almost 50% from three in the first 4 games of the series, playing great defense. He brought great energy. He had some tough mid-range shots as well. I know analytics say that shot is not an efficient shot to take, and I understand the math behind it, but that's just not how basketball is played in the playoffs. You know, those shots are important in the playoffs. In the regular season, sure, you go for threes and layups because over a large sample size, that is the most efficient way to play basketball. But that's for optimizing wins in the regular season. In the playoffs, you're optimizing for possessions. And every time that he came down and hit those tough mid-range jump shots, they were scoring 2 points at possession. Better than zero, better than the average, like 1.1, 1.2 points per possession. Those are important shots to take into practice. And so we need, like in the playoffs, it's time to move away from like analytical ball and just go get buckets. And he was being a bucket getter. The way he was moving, you know, he broke the unwritten rule and dunked it to end the series. It just, especially like the way he's moving against Chet, it just looked like it was more than basketball for him. And I know he's not a big name and he doesn't get the hype of like Area 51, you know, Castle and Wemby, or someone who's made a name for himself like Fox, or, you know, Harper, the rookie who has rightfully earned everyone's respect. But he is the second most important player on the Spurs. But speaking of Dylan Harper, man, there's just nothing to say but that he's so tough. Most rookies are struggling to get minutes on a playoff contender. Yet he is getting key minutes on a championship contender. He should not be this good this fast. He stepped into a starting role in game 1 with Fox out, and even with some of the mistakes he made, you could not have asked for him to do any better. The dude had a double-double with 7 steals in his first start of the playoffs in the conference finals, having to replace a veteran guard who has led a team to the playoffs before and won the inaugural Clutch Player of the Year. And boy, was Devin Harper clutch. And this series wasn't easy for him either. You know, he struggled a lot in the middle of the series, scoring in single digits of games 3 through 5. But he stayed ready and got back going, and arguably hit the dagger with that three-pointer that he hit in the fourth quarter. A rookie hitting a dagger in the Game 7 of the conference finals. You know, the other rookie, Carter Bryant, was making plenty of mistakes this series, and he looked like he was mentally struggling at times. And yet he was also already doing more than you could have asked for a rookie at this stage. So it just really makes no sense for Harper to be so good, so poised, and so mentally strong at this stage. Next, I want to talk about De'Aaron Fox. I'm personally not really a fan of the inefficient ISO scoring guard archetype, you know, like the tunnel vision, the lack of engagement on defense. I don't really think that this archetype is a championship player, but he kind of shut me up this series. You know, his value wasn't really shown his value was really shown in the early series, you know, when Castle had 20 turnovers in the first 2 games of the series before, you know, Fox came back to provide more of a steady hand. I thought I was right about him when it came back to game 6 when the Spurs were down 3-2 and their season was on the line and he shot 1 for 9. I was like, yep, I knew it. Fox he's not the type of guy you need to win a championship. But then in game 7, he played his role. He had timely shots, he shot efficiently, and he had the presence of mind to foul the Thunder when he knew he was about to be out of the play. And he took that foul to make sure that the Spurs didn't have to play scramble defense and instead forced the Thunder to play against a set defense. Things like that you just learn from experience, which most of the Spurs roster doesn't have. So moments like that just show how important it was for them to have a veteran like Fox. And I'm personally still unsure if he's like a championship player, but hey, Fox, go prove me wrong. The other guy to make a key fourth quarter play, not even key, like season-saving play, was Luke Kornet. After game 2, I'm sure most Spurs fans weren't looking forward to Kornet minutes. They were probably just hoping he didn't bleed too many points, you know, the non-Wemby minutes. Just don't lose by too much. But I don't know, I guess he got the power of the nuns or something, because when he subbed in for Wemby for that 1 minute, all he had to do, again, was just not bleed too many points. That's all the expectation was. I'm sure Mitch Johnson was just thinking, please don't slowly lead too much. And then he just comes in and activates. I don't even want to say this as a Warriors fan who still hasn't recovered from my trauma 10 years ago, but he activates 2016 LeBron mode and gets an insane chase down block that probably saved their season. And although the Spurs were in the lead, the Thunder were an experienced championship team with, again, a fantastic home crowd. And they were looking to make one final run, get some momentum. And that was the perfect moment. You're on a fast break, get a dunk, hype the crowd up, and Kornet just absolutely shuts it down. I hope he never has to pay for another meal in San Antonio again, because he deserves to have everything paid for. Go to the bar, paid for. Dinner, paid for. Everything just paid for. But now I want to also just talk about some of the Thunder players I grew to respect more over the course of the series. This is a segment I'm not really looking forward to as a Thunder hater, but I guess I have to be an objective podcaster or whatever. So the first guy I want to talk about is Jalen Williams, Asian Duke Dennis, the other Jalen Williams, J-Will, whatever you want to call him. He bought out this series. Last run he didn't really get any important minutes. He was just seen as the corny hype man that was, just always smiling on the bench. And I laughed at those memes myself, but how can you really hate the guy? No matter what you say about him or how the team is doing or how he's playing, he just seems like he just loves life. He sees the things to be happy about, and he's just always just happy. Like, how is he describing about happy? It's like him and Jared McCain. They're just, no matter what you throw at them, they'll figure out a way to just find enjoyment out of life. And how can you not respect that? Jalen Williams, he came in, showed his worth as a stretch big. He helped them win a game. In Game 3, he shot 5 of 6 from 3. He shot efficiently in Game 7, and he had to guard Wemby. He came off the bench, had to stretch the floor, had to take on arguably the best player in the world, and he was on that smoke, unlike a certain other big man on the team. But yeah, we'll get to that later. One guy who's not gonna get credit from fans is, especially as a more quiet and non-flashy guy, is Cason Wallace. His Game 7 efforts especially, I think, will go forgotten since the Thunder lost. But he's like the only guy who didn't leave shit out to dry last night. He shot, or in Game 7, that was like 2 nights ago now. He shot 4 of 5 from 3 in the fourth quarter. He led the team in scoring, and he was the only reason why the game was even remotely close toward the end. The Spurs were taking all these tough buckets and baskets, but Cason Wallace come down and hit a 3-pointer. He was the only one just keeping it competitive and close. And I thought I was seeing like an Aaron Nesmith flashback from last year. And that's the guy that any team would want. His defense is terrific. I've just seen him try to snatch the ball from people just coming down the court. They dribble, he just takes it from them. They pick up the dribble, he takes it from them. He led the series in steals. And then he comes back down on the offensive end. He's not scared of the moment. He shoots it, and he shoots it efficiently. That's why the Thunder started him in the finals last year, and then in Game 7 this year, in this series. He definitely deserves a bigger role, and I don't know if he's going to stay on the Thunder. It would probably require Lou Dort to be traded. I honestly don't see Lou Dort's value on the team anymore. With Cason Wallace, in my opinion, a more consistent and accurate shooter and a lockdown POA defender. Maybe if shooter isn't defined by making shots but just shooting the ball, then you could you can make the case for Lou Dort. But yeah, that guy, he didn't really do anything impactful this series. The last role player on the Thunder I want to talk about is Alex Caruso. He was arguably the Western Conference Finals MVP through the first 5 games since the Thunder were up 3-2 at that time, and he played great in 4 of the 5 games. I don't even think he can really hold Game 4 against his case because the Thunder just lost by so much that even if he played better, they probably would have lost anyways, so that's like whatever. He was a great big man defender on Wemby due to his IQ, his tenacity, and his core and lower body strength. I think that's an important characteristic for all future just people who defend Wemby, quote unquote, what a Wemby stopper would be. It would just be someone who has the core and lower body strength to just push Wemby out of the post and to have the IQ and tenacity to just get under his skin. And he did fairly well against Jokic last year. He did a whole fake double team and then steal the ball type stuff when Jokic would go to the pass the ball and he sees the double coming. And then in his offense, the Spurs dared him to beat them, and he was doing that. And that forced the Spurs to switch to more single coverage against Shea instead of double teaming him and daring anyone else to beat them. And at the end of the day, he is a role player, so you can't expect him to perform at that level the entire series. So ultimately, I think he did his job regardless of how he ended the series, and especially in Game 7. Now we go on to the All-NBA boys. Shea didn't play great this series. Through the first 6 games, he was shooting like 38%, lower than 38% from the field. And as a fan, it really is so infuriating to watch someone who attacks with no intention to score, but rather to draw a foul. I know this discourse it's probably tiring at this point to most fans, but at some point we need to punish players who aren't even trying to score the ball. Like, if you're obviously attacking your defender with the intention of drawing a foul and not to put the ball in the basket, you're not playing basketball. I get selling a call, right? Like, if a foul naturally happens and you exaggerate contact because the ref doesn't see it, that's one thing. That's selling a natural foul that's happening. That's very different from just not even trying to score. And it's sad because Shea makes tough buckets. The mid-range shots he makes, they're tough. And some people say some people do say it's a shame because he would still be as good without foul baiting. I'm not so sure about that because foul baiting does force defenders to guard you in an entirely different way. But regardless, those tough shots, if he just focused on scoring, like that's so much more fun to watch just aesthetically. It's so aesthetically pleasing to watch him score buckets like that when he's actually playing basketball. And I will say I do respect him. He did go out like a man in Game 7. He put his all on the line, and he played well. And what can you do but respect that? Now we can't say that about another man. Chet. You were voted All NBA third team. That means the media decided you were a top 15 player in the world. Dude, I don't even know if you were a top 15 player in this series, even counting the people getting DNPs, because you had a negative impact. What you can even see the moment when Chet just gave up that Game 7. It was when Wemby did that crazy give and go to start the game and just dunked all over Chet. And after that, you could just tell he just mentally quit. He wasn't there anymore. And the Chet Wemby beef, it's really interesting because I'd argue that Chet is more in Wemby's head than Wemby is in his head. In the sense that Chet wouldn't care about Wemby if Wemby didn't hate him so much. Like this whole beef is initiated by Chet being in Wemby's head first. And I get it, that Chet just wants to hoop, right? But he's going to have to engage in whatever this is that Wemby has going on with him because this is just sad. You know, Wemby having that fire, it allowed him to rise to the moment. And Chet didn't have that. If he had that fire, it would help him rise to the moment and meet Wemby. But instead, he just shrunk. You can't take 2 shots in a do or die situation, man. You lose and your season's over. You just flat out quit on your team, dude. Ben Simmons quit on the Sixers in that Game 7 against the Hawks, and he did better in that game than you did in this game. Ben Simmons took double the shots you took, got double the rebounds you did, and had 13 assists. He at least hit double digits in something. And he never played for the Sixers again after that game. I remember hearing on the commentator in this fourth quarter, them going, "Hello, Chet, where are you at? We need you." And that line's going to live with me forever. You left your boy Shea out to dry. If the media narrative about me was that I was getting absolutely owned and cooked, I'm taking 30 shots next game. I don't care if I go 1 for 30. It's not about that. It's about having some pride. He wasn't even trying to score in that fourth quarter. Man, not even that fourth quarter. He wasn't even trying to score since the second quarter. You're a top 15 player in the world at 7 feet tall with the talent that you have, and you can't find a way to put up a shot in 3 quarters. I'm not even asking you to find a way to put the ball in the basket. Just find a way to put up a shot. And it's so much easier to just guard someone who you know has no intention of scoring because you don't have to guard them with as much intensity, and you can, make the lives hard. You can just focus on the other 4 players and make the lives harder on them. They're just playing 4v5 at that point. Like, if you don't want to play, just stay home. Like, the guy played bad in the last year finals too, but I think he shot sub 40% from the field as a 7-footer. That's crazy, bro. And no one cared because he was just having a sell-off with Miles Turner, and Miles Turner won. Top 15 player in the world, averaging 9 points in the Western Conference Finals. In that fourth quarter, I honestly think Chet fell on purpose to get out of having to try and score the ball on Wemby because he was that nervous and scared of Wemby. In the coming years, the Spurs are here to stay. To get through the West, you have to get through the Spurs. And he's genuinely scared of Wemby. That's not being scared of Wemby as a threat in terms of rim protection or whatever. That's one thing. That's normal. Everyone's scared of that. But he's scared of Wemby as a man. And I don't know if you can fix that. Of course, this is one season. You can't give up on him yet. But if he's scared of him as a man, can you really fix that? You might need to see a sports psychologist or something to help him with this. But now let's talk about the man. Or actually, I guess the alien, Wembanyama. The first thing I want to talk about is just how refreshing it is to see someone who cares so much. Not only does he have the talent to be a great, but the desire as well. In the era of social media, it's so much cooler to be nonchalant, to have aura. But this guy's just so unapologetically himself, and you can tell how much each win and loss matters to him. And that care, that care just makes you try a little bit harder, and that's honestly just the difference is win and a loss. That care makes you try just a little bit harder. Sometimes basketball, it's not just about spreadsheets and analytics. It's about who wants it more. And Wemby will always want it more. Embiid showed his emotions after his Game 7 loss against Toronto all those years ago. He got made fun of. Yeah, Wemby doesn't care. He's comfortable and secure in himself. We may be witnessing history, guys. He already has the potential to be the best defender of all time with the way he protects the rim. And he can shoot from 30, and his leadership is on point too. Seeing how much he loves his teammates and telling guys like Carter Bryant how proud he is of him. Wemby himself is only 22, but he's just a natural. The one thing I hope he develops more is a post game, which I'm unsure if he can do effectively considering his frame. Since right now the best way to guard him isn't to try and match him with height, since he's going to shoot over anyone anyways. It's to have someone who has a lot of, as I said earlier, core and low body strength like Caruso. That does give him trouble when like attacking the rim should be a free bucket every time for him. And I don't know if weight is something that he can add without affecting his health. So I don't know how much of a better post game he can get in terms of that instead of like big bodying, but maybe getting some better footwork, working out with Hakeem over the summer, adding a hook shot, or getting some tips from Kareem. That would be great for his already deep bag. Spinning around the defender is one move that has worked, but we'll see if he can add other things, other little tricks to his bag. We'll see. He's only 22 after all, so it's whatever. There's nothing to worry about for him. That guy, you can just tell he's always gonna work hard. The only other thing I would say is I think Wemby has looked visibly gassed throughout the series, and I'm worried about how this holds up as they have another tough series to go through. Part of me didn't think he would make it through this series, and that they would lose, and it'd be a great learning lesson to get his conditioning up. Hopefully the break before the finals can get him some rest. Regardless, conditioning is something he can definitely improve. I'm not sure how good he can get at that. I don't think he'll ever be like Steph Curry levels conditioning, because just considering how tall and long he is and how much extra harder his heart probably has to pump to get blood throughout his body. But that is definitely something that would take his game to the next level, just to be more consistent throughout a series, because he did have some games where it looked like he kind of took it off. But to be honest, there's nothing you can really complain about. I thought the Spurs would encounter more adversity throughout this run. The Blazers are like whatever. I guess their core was also new to the playoffs, but they did have some playoff experience with vets like Drew Holiday, who has 2 rings, Jimmy Graham, who's been in the playoffs a few times, Robert Williams, who made the finals. And I thought that would present some more tricks to the Spurs. But the only game they even lost was when Wemby left early. And then the Spurs won the game that he didn't even play. The Wolves series, it did go 6, but I thought it would be more of a competitive 6. I don't necessarily think they dealt with much adversity in that series. Sure, after game 2 was a must-win since they lost game 1 at home. But it was like the Spurs, they played pretty bad offensively that game, and they still had a shot to win it to end the game. So I'm not sure if they were even really like panicking. I'm pretty sure Cass and Wemby were laughing after the game that it was even that close after how they played. And then game 4 that they also lost, they pretty much just lost because Wemby got ejected. Other than that, none of the games were particularly close or competitive. I think it was really obvious that the Spurs are going to win Game 5 and Game 6 and just get out of there. And honestly, it probably helped them with rhythm for Game 1. And then I don't know, I just thought the Wolves would present more trouble as back-to-back conference finals appearing team. But to be fair, they also were hobbled and heavily injured. But yeah, it's just I'm someone that leans a lot into past and historical patterns, and so it was and it still is really hard for me to believe that Wemby will lead the Spurs to a ring this season. I mean, who is the last great to win a ring their first playoff run? I feel like every team needs to deal with the heartbreaking loss before they win it all. MJ didn't, he had his demons with the Celtics and the Pistons. Shaq didn't. He got subbed in his first finals appearance. Tim Duncan didn't. He lost to the Jazz in his first year. Kobe didn't. He had all those air balls against the Jazz that one time. Dirk didn't. He lost the 06 finals and then got upset by the We Believe the Warriors the next year. LeBron didn't. He lost to the Celtics and had the 2011 meltdown. KD didn't. He had a couple of bad losses in OKC. Curry didn't. He had a heartbreaking Game 7 against the Clippers. And even recently, like Giannis didn't. Jokic didn't. Shea didn't. You'd have to go all the way back to like Magic to find someone, an all-time great at that level, who won it all in their first playoff run. So if Wemby does this, then it really would be some historical stuff. And of course, it's not guaranteed. The Knicks already fulfilled that archetype of suffering a few heartbreaking losses especially the past 2 years to the Pacers. So we'll see. But if he does win this, he'll be so ahead of the curve. It's ridiculous. And I don't know, maybe the France gold medal match is his version of the heartbreaking loss, but that doesn't extend to like Castle, Harper, Vassell, and those guys. So I don't know, it doesn't really make sense. But as we get to the finals and mention the Knicks, it's now time to talk about the main event, the San Antonio Spurs versus the New York Knicks. This is probably the first finals to excite me on paper since the Cavs Warriors days. I know the Spurs are the favorites still in the series, but I don't think anyone should expect this to be easy. Again, as I said earlier, each playoff core is generally expected to lose in a heartbreaking loss before winning to learn lessons and reflect on themselves to improve and rise to the next level. and that can still happen here. The Knicks have matched up well against the Spurs this season, winning the season series 2-1, and their one loss was only by 2 points. Of course, the Knicks level of competition the past 2 years hasn't been the best, but you can only play who's in front of you, and they play like a team on a mission. They already failed the past few years, and realistically, how many more times can you run it back with the same core before accepting maybe this core's just not good enough? Maybe we need to make a trade here and there. Maybe we should trade everyone. They know this might be one of their last chances to win it together, and they're taking advantage of that. They've been dominant. I turned on Game 4 after the Knicks went down 2-1 to the Hawks, and you just got this vibe that they realized they just needed to lock in. They need every possession, no more messing around, no more mistakes. Just play at the level you know you can play at. They already, I would say, they underperformed in the regular season relative to expectations, and then they lost. And then they were down 2-1. Like that was it. There's no more messing. This is your one chance to go win it all. And they've locked in. They've done exactly that since. I really couldn't believe my eyes when I just remember looking at the Knicks Hawks Game 6 score, and it was 72-22. I could not believe my eyes. I don't think I've seen a win that dominant in the playoffs in like 10 years. I'd have to go back to like Bulls Bucks in 2015 in the first round. Even the legendary Mavericks Suns Game 7 where Luka put belt, that game wasn't as crazy as this one. It wasn't as lopsided as this one. And then the very next game against the Sixers, they showed it wasn't a fluke. It wasn't a one-time thing. They put Bell again. And this Knicks team is a very mentally strong team. The Knicks are, in the last 2 years, they're 4-3 when down 20 or more in the playoffs. The rest of the NBA is 4-60, is a combined 4-67 in the same situation. They match the rest of the NBA in wins and have 22 times less losses. I think this matchup will be very interesting. It's one side it's like a young team who has massively exceeded expectations this year, and then one sort of underperformed, especially in the last 2 years in the playoffs. At least they lost playoff series that they were expected to win or favored to win coming in. However, the Knicks are the veteran team. They're hot right now, and they look like they're here to right the past wrongs. And I want to take time to just analyze specifically the matchups between the two teams, especially between the starters. Of course, this is a 7-game series. It's not just starter versus starter. There's benches, there's substitution patterns. There'll be different looks and schemes to just keep players on their toes and to just force them to continue to adjust. But just main matchups to start and end the game. I think, so let's start with the Spurs on defense. I'd say Wemby is definitely very likely to guard Hart, so he can play more free safety and protect the rim. Sort of like how he was guarding Caruso a lot to start the series, or just the series in general. And I think this cross match really just makes things interesting, and does because of this cross match. Through this cross matches, other cross matches, and that makes a lot of Knicks players potential X factors. There's so many that I don't even know who I can definitively point to and say he is the X factor. But for this matchup, at least, it'll be up to Hart to punish the defense, like how Caruso did. How he forced the Spurs to adjust and force single coverage against Shea rather than their initial decision to just have anyone but Shea beat them. And Hart, he sometimes has this weird thing going on where he just seems very passive in terms of his shot tendency. He doesn't look very aggressive, but he will probably be getting a lot of warm-up threes to start the series. So it'll just be up to him to punish the defense. And I think with Wemby guarding Hart, that means that Vassell is likely going to be the one to guard Cat. So once again, like Hart, Cat, when you take advantage of this cross match, or whether it be like hitting threes, spacing the offense, or using his size to punish Vassell as he's bigger than Vassell. I think people forget because Wemby is so tall and he has a backup Blue Cornet, but other than that center rotation, the Spurs aren't very big. Their whole roster is essentially 6'7" or lower, or 6'7" or shorter. And so we'll see if Cat is able to take advantage of that. Cat has historically been inaccurate, but then also like Hart, passive shooter. But Cat has been pretty good this playoff run, and I would really like to see point Cat the way he's been playing this playoff run. His ability to put pressure on the defense and then make the right play, find his guys. If he can attack Vassell, force the Spurs to help, and then make the right decision out of that, that will provide immense value to the Knicks. Other than that, I think the two obvious matchups is Castle guarding Brunson and Champagnie guarding OG. Castle, he did a great job defending Shea last series, and Brunson is smaller than Shea, so we'll see how Brunson deals with that. I do hope that Castle learns to maintain his aggression, but becoming like more disciplined and less foul prone. Last series he claimed the refs were like making it hard to guard Shea because of their calls. If I'm being honest, I think most, if not all, of his fouls were warranted, as he sort of is a hack, and he has a history of struggling with foul trouble. It's not like just that series. But most good defenders, they're like kind of hacks in a little bit anyways. But hopefully as time goes on, he just learns to walk that line, be aggressive, and without being a full-on hack. Regardless, the Spurs should be very happy to have someone like Castle as their POA defender. I don't think like Brunson, it's like over Brunson because he's facing Castle now, but I just think that'll be an interesting match to watch. Castle's aggressive defense and Brunson's just deep bag of ways to just get open, both inside and outside the arc. I think the other matchup, Champagny and OG, is only natural because the only other left is Fox, and Champagny is and OG, between OG and Mikal Bridges. OG is a much more physically imposing player, so I think Champagny just has to guard him as he's bigger than Fox. And while Champagny's defense is solid, we'll see how that goes. That's not a matchup I'm super comfortable with if I'm the Spurs, but sometimes you just have to take what you can get and just hope dudes rise to the occasion. And then, so that leaves Mikal Bridges and De'Aaron Fox starting Mikal Bridges. I think that, just like how I mentioned Cat and Hart were X factors, I think Mikal Bridges is also someone that can be seen as an X factor, since he will have someone much smaller than him guarding him. And it's funny because Mikal, he's just like Cat, just like Hart, Mikal has this history of being passive with his shot tendency. But he is super talented. He can go get buckets, get tough buckets. But just sometimes you just forget that he's even an offensive option on the court. He has been. I would say he has been playing much better since the Hawks series. He's taken over 10 shots like every game since then. He's played great offensively, shot great. I just hope it's something he continues to do in this finals, because dude, this is not the time for him to stop doing that. This is not the time, bro. If you're gonna do it for the past 2 series, you better continue it. The Knicks can't afford to just have him disappear now that he's on the biggest stage. And if he can take advantage of this matchup and punish Fox, that's another person who will put pressure on the Spurs defense and force them to adjust. If Hart is able to hit threes and force Wemby, has to pull Wemby away. If Cat is abusing Vassell, and then if Mikal is abusing Fox, it just becomes a nightmare defensively for the Spurs, and they have to adjust to that. But of course, like, that's assuming they play perfect basketball, and who plays perfect basketball? About the Knicks, also about the Knicks offense. Last series, they did a great job of getting Harden on Brunson. Getting that switch, allowing Brunson to pick him apart, go downhill, make decisions out of that. So if the Knicks can continue to do that with someone like Fox, especially with Fox not at full health, then they'll also be able to put a lot of pressure on the Spurs defense in that way. But again, the Spurs have Wemby in their back line instead of the soft bigs in Cleveland, so he can cover up a lot of weaknesses that way. And so yeah, this just shows how much of a chess match this series is, and it's so interesting, just all these different possible matchups and how the players will attack it and stuff. Just knowing, if I get Fox on me, okay, I blow past Fox, but now I have to deal with Wemby at the rim. When I kick it out to Hart, will Hart knock that down? It's just, we'll see how the series plays out. As for the Knicks side of things, who guards Wemby? I think it has to be OG. He's probably one of the best defenders you can get to guard Wemby. Like, if you're taking the whole NBA and you're saying, okay, who's going to go guard Wemby? OG would definitely be at the top, if not the top of the list. He's a great defender. He's very strong, like I mentioned, needing that lower body strength. OG has that. He has length to him. He's just naturally a good defender. I think he can do what Caruso did defensively last series, but even better. Yeah, and it'll be up to him and Mitchell Robinson off the bench to probably Mitchell Robinson off the bench to try and lower Wemby's productivity. The other obvious matchup, I think, is Bridges on Fox. Bridges has the length to try and make Fox uncomfortable, especially since Fox isn't at full speed. Remember last year, Bridges actually had the 2 defensive ceiling plays in both games 1 and 2 in the Boston series to take the commanding 2-0 lead on the road. And so, yeah, we'll see how he does with Fox. If he can lock up and recreate that magic he had in the Boston series, especially game 1 and 2, that will slow down the Spurs offense a lot, as Fox is their steady hand in terms of ball handling. I think since OG's on Wemby, then it's Cat, you'd have to put him on Vassell. I don't like Cat as a rim protector anyways. Just like Castle, he historically fouls a lot, and it's been a thing he's needed to clean up since his Minnesota days, and if it still hasn't improved by now, it probably never will, and you don't really want that guy being your back line. So, and honestly, he's played some pretty solid perimeter defense this season and in the playoff runs. And surprisingly, as he's a big man, I would actually rather him playing perimeter defense than play rim protection. And Vassell isn't necessarily the type of guy to put Cat in foul trouble, especially among the other players on the Spurs. So that should help Cat a bit, but I don't even know if that helps, because Cat honestly he does it himself with his questionable decision making. And then where we go from there, we have Hart and Brunson left for Castle and Champagnie. I'd say you probably have to put Hart on Castle, because Castle is definitely attacking Brunson relentlessly. Hart does lack some lateral quickness, but he at least brings tons of energy and hustle. And I do think he'll create chaos on the defensive end when Castle doesn't have the ball. I don't know. It's weird because I would rather have Hart guarding a more predominantly off-ball player to play more free safety, or even guard someone in the post like Wemby, because he does have hustle, energy, and physicality. I just think he's not big enough to cause Wemby any trouble like OG can. But hey, even if maybe he lacks a little bit of lateral quickness, the playoffs are all about rising to the occasion and overcoming challenges. And I don't think Hart out of anyone is someone that's going to run from that. So we'll see how he takes on that challenge. So that just leaves Brunson on Champagnie. I think this is the only person that Brunson can be realistically expected to guard among the starters, because Champagnie is a primarily off-ball player, and therefore Brunson will just have to focus on shadowing him off the ball and not have to worry about being attacked off the dribble like Fox or Castle might do to him. And even Vassell, the other players will attack off the dribble much more than Champagnie. This is more of a don't fall asleep job than keep up laterally with your man job. And in a championship series, that shouldn't be too much of an ask, I would hope. The one thing is Champagnie does crash the offensive glass a lot. So Brunson doesn't need to remember that, defense doesn't end after the shot goes up, but rather when your team gets the rebound. So he needs to just remember that and just box out. But yeah, as for paths for victory, I don't think the Spurs can expect to beat the Knicks the same way they beat the Thunder. With the Thunder, the best way you beat them is to dare them to beat you by shooting threes, especially after J-Dub went out. I think if the Spurs brought that defense, the Knicks would punish that type of defense, and it would be a long night for the Spurs, since the Knicks, if you just let the Knicks take warm-up threes. The Spurs need to, in my opinion, just use their athleticism, suffocate the Knicks perimeter, and if they get beat, they have the best backline in the game to clean up, not even in the game, maybe of all time, to clean up their mistakes. They also need to continue to crash the glass, like how they did against the Thunder, especially in that late Game 7. The Spurs just completely destroyed the Thunder on the boards. It wasn't even close in late in that game. And they also just need to use their youth and athleticism to get out to fast starts like they did for most of the series against the Thunder. I think that's part of the reason why the Spurs won, was because it just felt like in most games the Thunder were playing catch-up, and I don't think that's very sustainable. It's just both mentally and physically exhausting to constantly be just being forced to play catch-up instead of playing at maintain or whatever. On the other hand, for Knicks, ways to win, I think they just need to take advantage of the pick and roll, hunt switches and mismatches as they have been. They need to pull Wemby away from the rim. Now is not the time for their shooting to come back down to earth. Now is not the time. You done it. You made this far with it. You better keep going. You can't go back to normal now. It's not the time. The Spurs aren't super turnover prone, but if the Knicks, they can use their experience, take advantage of the Spurs' inexperience, especially when someone like Castle has the ball, and then just get out and run. They're not a super, especially in the regular season, they weren't a super steal-heavy team, but they are a very efficient team in transition. And so if they can do that, get out and run, that'll be to their advantage as well. But when they're on offense, like when they're in the half-court offense, I don't think they should play fast at all. They shouldn't be forcing transition plays off of a made basket. I think that they should just play more slow and methodical because the Spurs just have too many players. Like if Fox gets the ball, he goes downhill. Castle gets the ball, he's going in transition. Like that's not you can't win playing like that because the Spurs just like the Knicks are able to run in transition. So yeah, just play more slow and methodical in the half court. Let Jalen Brunson break down the defense and don't make any of those risky cross court passes where you have just Fox jumping the passing lanes. That's the one time he becomes extremely useful in the defense is when he let him just intercept the ball and go down the court. But yeah, I think this series will ultimately be a great chess match. I hope this series gives us a competitive, close match that lives up to its hype. As after this series is over, we'll have to go 4 months without basketball. So I don't want this experience, especially as a third party, with no, not cheering for either team too hard, to just be some good basketball. Go have the series go on. Hopefully, the series goes on as long as it can, and yeah, the parity in the league continues. I guess we will for sure have another new champion this year, continuing the trend from 2019. It's Brunson versus Wemby, David versus Goliath, the bright lights of New York versus the small market humility of the San Antonio Spurs. Game 1 starts Wednesday, and I will be here to cover the entire series. So let's buckle up. I hope you enjoyed the return of Law of Ball, and I will see you soon.